Honestly, I'm not sure if you can drop a more perfect quarterback prospect for the 2025 NFL Draft than Cam Ward. Not only does he check all the boxes you want in a future star quarterback, but he also has the perfect story. There's totally going to be a movie made about this guy someday, and in today's video, I'm going to make a short film on him. We're to go through how Cam Ward went from a guy who had no big time offers, played at the FCS level, and then moved his way all the way up to the top of college football, to the point where he almost won the Heisman and could be the #1 overall pick in this year's draft class. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Cam Ward. So in order to understand how Ward got to this point, we first need to go back in time. His trainer, JP Tillman, said, quote, "It's unbelievable to watch a story like this. I'm just floored. For a kid to get his second chance at recruiting and to see it unfold like this is Cinderella-like." Each one of Cam Ward's stops during his journey has been incredible, whether it was his high school in West Columbia, Incarnate Word, Wazoo, or now Miami, it has all been pretty nuts. From an early age, Cam Ward was good on the football field. His dad said, quote, "Even when he was playing little pee-wee football, he was lining kids up and telling them where they had to be. He's always been a hard worker, and he's always had that determination to say, hey, I'm going to be the best." Cam Ward one day dreamed of going to the NFL, and luckily he would have someone to look up to, as Quandre Diggs, the Seattle Seahawks Pro Bowl safety, was actually his cousin. What's unique about Ward's story is at one point basketball was his preferred sport, until he got hit with the football bug during high school. On the gridiron, he averaged 23 points a game as a junior, and before that he was averaging 19 points a game as a sophomore and 15 as a freshman. Ward probably had somewhat of a future in basketball, but he decided that football was going to be his sport. He said, quote, "I decided 2 weeks into the summer that I was going to pursue football as the sport I wanted to continue playing at the next level. It isn't that I don't like basketball anymore, but I have really enjoyed the exposure I've gotten in football, and to me that's one of the reasons why I switched." During the 2017 season, when he was a sophomore at Columbia High School, he made his first start under center. He had a ton of hard work to that point, and going into his senior year, he had made 12 official starts at the quarterback position, and Ward was really not on anybody's radar, at least not seriously. More than 15 Division I programs had inquired about Ward, but none ever pulled the trigger or were all that serious. He ended up completing 72 of 124 passes for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns as a junior, and as a senior, Ward only averaged 12 passing attempts per game due to Columbia playing in the wing T style of offense, which is not good for a passing quarterback trying to make it to college. He was mostly handing the ball off, pitching it, and carrying out fakes, and while he had good measurables, like being 6'2", 230 pounds, or a powerful arm, you'd only get to see it if the Roughnecks fell behind. So yeah, basically Cam Ward only handed the ball off, and his team was so good that he never got to show his skills. Arm talent alone doesn't get you noticed in a state as big as Texas, and Ward's limited tape did not help him out. His father emailed and phoned many schools to try to generate interest, but nobody really ever vouched for Cameron, and he could not find any takers. Incarnate Word's head coach said that he saw Cam Ward's high school tape and he showed no signs of being able to process an up-tempo, complex offense. That was a red flag. The Wards would hit many camps during that summer of 2019, and Texas A&M was actually interested in offering him, but they would land Haynes King a few weeks later, so they decided to offer Ward a walk-on spot because they did not think he could handle Jimbo Fisher's offense. Ward's last camp of the summer was Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word's quarterback coach did not think his tape was flashy, but he had one throw on a post rope that got his attention. He had good balance, a fluid motion, and it was a good throw, and he wanted to see more. At the FCS level, low-paid coaches make decent money off summer camps, and that comes from inviting pretty much every kid on their board, even those who they don't even want. Ward showed up, absolutely ripped the football, wowed the staff, and they started to build a relationship. But despite him being able to move and extend plays, they did not offer him, and Ward would continue under the radar. Morris ended up taking over as Incarnate Word's head coach in 2018 after 5 years being an offensive coordinator at Texas Tech under Cliff Kingsbury. Morris had his own take on the air raid and decided to extend Cam Ward an offer. They pitched Ward on playing on an offense that could throw the ball 50 times a game, and obviously Cam liked hearing that. 1 week before signing day, he took his official visit to Incarnate Word, and the family met with Morris at the end of the visit, and he asked if anyone else had anything to say. Cameron said, quote, "Yeah, I'm committing." He said it was a pretty easy choice because it was either that or JUCO, and then he said I took a chance on them and they took a chance on me, and I'd say it worked out pretty good. At the time, Ward was listed as a 0-star recruit and would head to Incarnate Word trying to prove the world wrong. So how'd he end up doing? Well, the first round of March Madness is over and there's been a lot of chalk. There is still a good opportunity to cash in on the games that are remaining. From the first tip-off to the Final Four, MyBookie has you covered in terms of high-stakes matchups, wild finishes, and big-time opportunities. They've packed in promotions, props, and features that make betting on this event not only exciting, but also profitable. For example, we still have 3 total games left in March Madness, including Florida versus Auburn in the Final Four, as well as Houston and Duke. And if you have a hunch that a certain team is going to win, like Cooper Flag and Duke, you should just go ahead and make that pick. And if you're not a basketball fan anymore, there are plenty of other games to talk about, including the UFL, which will have a couple of games at the end of this week. When you decided what you're going to pick, go over to MyBookie and use my promo code Fisher50 for your first bet. Despite a calm start to the month of March, I think the madness will finally ensue in these later rounds, so be sure to take advantage of all the craziness. Again, be sure to use Fisher50 over at MyBookie. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. Cameron went over to Incarnate Word with the full intention of winning the starting job. His dad said, quote, "I'm like Cameron, that's good and all and I like the confidence, but the dude you're trying to beat out is an All-American." He was like, "Dad, I'm telling you, I'm going to beat him out." Incarnate Word's 2020 fall season was canceled due to the pandemic, and this was disappointing but was very beneficial to Ward's development. He had 4 more months to learn and catch up as they would now play in the spring, and he got to learn all the air raid basics. The team played in the spring and Ward got a shot. He needed 1 month to understand the offense, and by December, he had taken over for John Copeland as the #1 quarterback, and Ward would end up throwing for 2,200 yards with 24 touchdowns in just 6 games, averaging 50 passes per game, and winning the Jerry Rice Award as the top freshman in the FCS. And after that, Ward would do even better. He would end up helping them go 10-3 while staying undefeated at their home stadium. Incarnate Word was the Southland Conference champions. They made it to the second round of the NCAA FCS playoffs, and Ward had over 4,000 yards. He said, quote, "This season has been unbelievable. From the highest FCS ranking in program history to the most wins in program history, conference champions, winning the first playoff game, and much more. It's been great to be a part of something so special." Then, out of nowhere, his head coach who recruited him and gave him a shot decided to leave for Washington State. 5 days later, Cameron Ward would end up entering the portal, and there were tons of different people who wanted him. He ended up inevitably committing to Washington State to follow offensive coordinator Eric Morris, and Ward said in that time period he faced a lot of uncertainty. He felt he should follow the coach that recruited him and provided him his only offer, but he also really liked Incarnate Word. Ultimately, they won out because of that coach, the chance to play at the Power 5 level, and that system was really good for his skill set. As I said, he ended up having 6,900 yards and 71 passing touchdowns in his 2 years at Incarnate Word and set pretty much every record imaginable. He was thankful that Incarnate Word took a chance on him, but eventually he was ranked as the number 11 overall transfer at one point and was going under the radar as one of the new top quarterbacks in college football in 2022. He said ultimately it was between Washington State and Ole Miss, but Washington State had that edge for multiple reasons. Lane Kiffin saw his tape and said there was nothing wrong with him, but Washington State would end up getting him, and he had a really good 2-year career there as well. In his first year as a starter in 2022, Ward would throw for 3,200 yards with 23 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, while completing 65% of his passes. In 2023, Ward ended up getting even better, as he was in the top 10 in pretty much everything statistically, as he finished with 3,700 yards with 25 touchdowns and 7 picks. One thing that was a problem for Ward over the years though was fumbles, as he did struggle to take care of the football a little bit. Washington State also started out strong in 2023, but completely collapsed by the end of the season, and Ward was now probably going to head off to the NFL. He had started 44 games and had nearly 14,000 passing yards and 119 touchdowns. But he was given feedback that he was at best a day 2 selection, so he pulled out of the draft and ended up going back into the portal. He said, quote, "At the end of the day, I think I'm a day 1 quarterback. I think coming back to college can solidify myself." Ward was torn between choosing Miami or the NFL, but a few hours after his decision to declare for the draft, DJ Uiagalelei went to Florida State, and Ohio State ended up getting Will Howard. Those were 2 schools that really wanted him. While the Canes did get a transfer from Albany, Cam Ward would eventually decide to commit to Miami. The Hurricanes have only had one 10-win season since they joined the ACC in 2004, and have only had one quarterback drafted since Ken Dorsey led the program to a national title in 2001. Ward immediately became the best quarterback in the ACC, was given preseason awards, and was given low-key Heisman hype. Ward ended up having a tremendous 2024 season, and honestly I feel like you can blame the defense for as to why he did not win the Heisman this year. Ward started off the season on a high note as he traveled on the road to the Swamp in Florida and threw for 385 yards with 3 touchdowns. He continued on that tear as he had 3 touchdowns against Florida A&M, 5 against Ball State, 3 against USF, and 4 against Virginia Tech. He did end up having a struggle game against Cal, but he ended up leading a crazy comeback in that second half and kept their undefeated season alive and at 6-0. He then had a nearly perfect game on the road against Louisville, helped them beat Florida State, and then 5 touchdowns and a comeback victory against Duke. All of a sudden, Miami was now 9-0, headed to the college football playoff, and Ward was the betting favorite for the 2024 Heisman Trophy. Except, the last couple of weeks proved to be somewhat disastrous for Ward and the Miami Hurricanes. It first started on the road against Georgia Tech, as their defense just failed them and Ward couldn't bail him out, as despite having 348 yards and 3 touchdowns, they would lose to the Yellow Jackets 28-23. Luckily, he'd have a bounce-back game with 3 touchdowns against Wake Forest, but in a game that they desperately needed to win against Syracuse in order to go to the ACC title and in turn the college football playoff, Ward ended up not being able to bail them out again. The defense was just atrocious, and Ward threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they lost by 4 to the Orange, and they missed out on the ACC championship game. Clemson took their spot instead, and in turn, both Jeanty and Travis Hunter would take his Heisman spot. This was a disastrous and heartbreaking way to end the year for Ward, but he still had an incredible season and would go out with a bang. He ended up breaking the record with 3 touchdowns against Iowa State in their bowl game, but he would opt out in the second half, causing some people to not like the dude, and they lost by 1 point to Iowa State. In total though, Ward ended up throwing for 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 7 picks, while also having 4 more scores on the ground. Sure, the guy had a nearly perfect season it seemed, but 3 losses in their last 4 games was not a good look for him, and the season will always be seen as a disappointment and a what if, because truly I thought they were headed to the playoff. There's a lot to like about Ward as a prospect. Not only does he have a ton of experience, but he put up good numbers, has the height, has the arm, has the accuracy, has the it factor, has the mental intangibles, and I think personally has what it takes to make it at the NFL level. This guy truly checks every single box for me, as I don't think he did anything wrong last year at Miami, and always proved he was the best player on the field. It seems that scouts agree, as according to NFL Mock Database, he's currently listed as the number 1 overall quarterback and the number 1 overall prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft class. He is the betting favorite to go number 1 overall, and I see no reason why he shouldn't. Again, I think he checks every single box, and you don't need a film breakdown or a scouting video from me, as you can just watch him for yourself, and this guy pretty much does everything. He looks like a future NFL quarterback, and it'll depend on the system he gets put in. As I've always thought, if he goes to a terrible organization, his chances of being good are bad, but if he goes to the right system and is given the proper tools and coaching, I think he could be a star and one of the top young players in the NFL. But honestly, I like his story more than anything, as this is a guy who's always overcome the odds, playing at both Incarnate Word, playing at Washington State, and then getting his opportunity to be at the top of college football at Miami. I wish I would have been able to see him play in the playoff, but you can really blame the defense for that. But still, we'll all get to watch him on Sundays, and I wish him the best of luck moving forwards. But what do you guys think? If you're a fan of Miami or the NFL, how do you think Cam Ward will do in this year's draft class? How do you think Cam Ward will end up doing in the NFL? And what other prospect should I take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen, including my video about Jalen Milroe. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.